Press comments. Beautiful. So, hey guys and girls, I am so excited. It is our first rant for 2022. And I'm pumped, because instead of having to listen to just me or me interviewing a local here in Australia, we are very, very fortunate to have one of the greats, Todd Duncan, as this audience starts building up. Todd Duncan, we got some good quality people coming on. I'm just having a look. A guy that's just come on, Mark Saleh, is doing 250 sales in last year. So Todd, here it comes. The audience is coming in. He has stayed up. It is 1 a.m. in California. 1 a.m. in California. Hi, Mark. Hi, Sam. Hey, Tracy, coming on. So excited to have this guy. Heard him speak at AREC, got talking to him in between his you had two sessions at AREC, didn't you, Todd?
Yes, I did. Yep. We did high trust selling part 1 and then high trust selling part 2.
Yeah. So this has been streamed. This has been streamed on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. And the reason I'm excited about this conversation is that you are talking about a subject, but you've actually been the person that's listening to this right now, like an agent, mortgage broker. You, in fact, were a super real estate broker and a super mortgage broker. So it's not like you are a trainer, professional trainer as such. You actually walk the talk. So how long? So tell me more about how long were you doing that for?
So I'm a street fighter. I got out of college, got my broker's license for real estate, got my license for lending, and decided that I was going to try and do both. And I had a really great early mentor that decided that he wanted to pour into me, and I learned a lot of really, really great lessons as a 23-year-old university graduate. And 12 years later, my team and I had settled just shy of 6,000 real estate transactions and/or lending transactions. And I had a bunch of people that were kind of asking me to train them and teach them on, like, how did you guys do that? I mean, how did you build and scale 500 transactions a year plus for 12 years? And I got to start teaching. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, maybe I ought to do this for a living, because there seems to be a lot of interest. I love all these people coming on, Tom. And one thing led to another. And so I sold the practice to my team and did a self-funded buyout, and they took over, and I started this company today that I still own. And we got over 5 million clients around the globe, and we try to teach truth and trust and have people understand the power of that, especially in real estate, big transactions, and lending, big debt. It's been a good ride, man. So I at the age of 34 started this company, and here we are.
Now I want to ask you, when you were a broker, what's the most important advice you ever received?
Yeah, I'd love to know. No, this is worth everything. And my mentor looked at me and he said, before we go too far, you need to make a decision. And I said, so what's the choice? And he said, you got to choose right now if you're going to pursue transactions or you're going to pursue relationships. And I paused for a moment because I was still new. I kind of understood what that meant intuitively. But I said, so why do you ask? And he said, here's the reason why. He said, if you pursue transactions, you can make a living. If you pursue relationships, you can make a fortune. And he had me at fortune, and I'm thinking, wow. And so I went very deep with him and kind of dug into that. And he said, all you have to know for the rest of your life is if you do a great job for a seller, you do a great job for a buyer, you do a great job for somebody who's going to borrow money. If you do that and you do that well, that person will be the gateway to anybody else that you need. And Tom Panos, I would not know you if I didn't believe in that, because my first gig in Australia was in 1996. And I met people then that introduced me to people later, And then I got introduced to John, and then I got introduced to you at AREC. And here we are, and that was a 25-year journey to find out about this guy, Tom Panos. So relationships drive everything. And I think what gave us a leg up, Tom, is we understood that to the point where we had individual business sources that in those 12 years were responsible for 300 or 400 transactions. Now, we could get 400 transactions from 400 different people, or we could get 400 transactions from one person that knew those influences. And I think that made all the difference, because people that are referred to you trust you faster, people that are referred to you negotiate less, people that are referred to you shop less options, people that are referred to you refer you to others that they know and love and trust. And it became the holy grail of my business: relationship, relationship, relationship. And my mentor was right. A fortune was made.
Listen, I want you to repeat that sentence, because every year I do my top 10. I pick top 10 things that I heard in the interviews I've done. And even though this is the first one of the year, I've got a funny feeling it's going to be up there. And I want you to repeat that sentence, because I actually think there are sometimes, isn't it weird, Todd? One sentence, you could actually write an essay about it, right? You could actually do a PhD about that sentence. Firstly, I want you to repeat that sentence again.
Okay, so the idea is that if you pursue transactions, you can make a living. If you pursue relationships, you can make a fortune. And relationships are the holy grail to trust and transaction management. Period. End of story. It's easy. It's easy to convert. It's easy to approach. It's easy to appointment set. It's easy to ask for referrals. It's easy. And I think we make business too hard. You know, you sit here and you go, do I want 400 people to give me one transaction? Or do I want one person to introduce me to 400 sellers? Whatever the number is, it doesn't have to be that number. But I happened to be introduced to a guy that ran a community bank, and they had 4,000 depositors at the community bank. And that was the relationship that I became the real estate agent for. And 10 years later, we had done over 400 transactions. One bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to, So you talked about this term at AREC, and I think it was on day one. You might have mentioned it on day two again. Trust is your superpower. Trust is your superpower, right? And the way it came across, it's this unique thing that if you get right will devastate all your other competitors. And we have a thing in Australia, Todd, called commission breath. And in real estate particularly, and agents go into a listing presentation, a valuation or appraisal, call it what you like, to try and win the business. And there's 3 or 4 other agents that are at the listing presentation, 3 or 4 other are fighting over that business. I want to ask, for the people that are watching this right now, are there things? Is it just the way that you're born? You're a person that actually creates trust with people, or is it something that you can cultivate, get better at?
Well, it's both. I think the first thing you have to decide is that if you want to be unique and different, you've got to do what the competition doesn't do. And most agents are happy to talk about a listing price. Most agents are happy to talk about a marketing plan. Most agents are happy to do this. The real strong agents say, there's a lot of agents that will do this for you, and here's how I'm different. And right there and then, when I say that, I have the particular person's attention. In this case, it would be the seller. I have their attention. I can say all day long that, anybody's happy to do this. Anybody will tell you this. Anybody will promise you this. But how we're different is this is a relationship. And what I want to know is what your goals are with real estate. I want to know what you want to try and achieve with the sale of this property. Where do you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years with real estate ownership? What are the goals that you have? And as soon as I start understanding this, I'm doing what my competition doesn't do. And that is connecting emotionally. And what happens when we connect emotionally is we accelerate trust and we deepen relationship. And it's interesting that people will get to yes much faster if you get to their heart first before you try to get to their head. And, when you think about trust is not something you can just say, I'm a high trust guy. I'm a trustworthy realtor. You got to earn it, because the industry, I said this at AREC, the industry is not trusted. Most financial industries have challenges with trust, and you could be an agent with the right heart, and you could have the right motive, and you could be somebody who wants to pursue trust with your clients, but you're in an industry that's distrusted. And so you've got to really carve your way to be unique and different. And we have this interesting thing, Tom, that's going on right now is in the area of trust. When you think about trust being your superpower, think about the idea that you don't have to sell. Think about the idea that you don't have to promote and posture. Think about the idea that you don't have to make promises that might be marginal just to try to win the business. You're going to do the right thing, and you're going to earn trust by changing the dynamic of the relationship. That's why this relationship piece was so important. If I'm just doing a transaction with you, I'm going to duke it out with 4 or 5 other agents and we'll see who wins. But if I'm going to build a relationship with you, I'm going to be unique out of the gate, and I'm just going to be different out of the gate. From the very start, I'm going to be different. And the beautiful thing about trust being your superpower is it attracts, Tom. It attracts, and referrals are attracted when trust is high. When trust is low, the only thing that you have going for you is trying to outmaneuver the other guy. When trust is high, the other guys kill themselves. It's just It's amazing. So it's a little word that is hugely powerful. And I'll say this. You know, it's interesting. We have this new white paper out, and I'll say it, you know, to the listening audience that's accumulating here. And it's very interesting. We've interviewed over 22,000 real estate agents and mortgage brokers, and the findings that we have, Tom, are the most successful people talk less and they sell more. It's very fascinating. And, you know, it's interesting. You can talk yourself out of a deal. And when you think about what really is different with trust, okay, we take that age-old rule, 80-20, right? The 80-20 rule, you know, 80-20, 80-20. And most people have never applied it to a conversation, right? And so when we look at conversational productivity, most agents will take 80% of the time to talk, sell, promote, and 20% of the time to listen. The pros reverse that, okay? They take 80% of the time to ask game-changing questions and listen, and 20% of the time to secure the contract and close the deal. Here's the other thing they do, is 80% of the conversation is based on you and I connecting. It's about emotion. And then 20% of the conversation is about the economics. The ones that don't get that are spending 80% of the time on the economics and only 20% on the emotion. And when you do it that way, you don't have high conversion rate. So it's powerful. One of the studies, listen to this, Tom. If you were to take 100 words and 100 words was your normal pitch, and you understood that I should probably talk less. So let's cut it to 80 words. If you use 80 words instead of 100 words, your conversion to contract is 17%. This is worldwide. If you change that and you go, okay, I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to use 20% of the words instead of 100% of the words, which means I've got to ask really good questions, right? Fewer questions, really good. My conversion rate goes to north of 71% to contract. So it's like, how much pressure is taken off the sales professional when they realize I've got to ask the questions I've never asked so I can learn the things I've never learned, so I can solve the things I've never solved. That's how we sell in today's high trust world. It's powerful, so powerful.
I want to ask you about this issue about, like, obviously, if you listen, what helps listening is if you've asked a question, because when you ask a question, that puts you in a position to listen. But I want to ask you about what's the secret at asking amazing questions or engaging questions, right? And I'd love to know the research, because you do a lot of research. I can tell that you don't just wing this stuff, you know. You're out there and you're surveying and you're reading, and you're getting all the data. Tell me a little bit more about engaging questions.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is, if you go all the way back to Socrates, so Socrates was born about 400 years before Christ. And one of the things he said the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. And that's how you need to approach sales. I know nothing about this seller that would be important to this seller about this home being sold. I know nothing. That's my attitude going in. If I go in thinking just another seller, I know what sellers want, blah, 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 then I'm going to miss the mark entirely. So the key to good questions is fewer words that are more emotionally charged. So I'll give you an example. So if I were going up against another, agent, and using your example of, 3 or 4 people vying for the same property, and I realize that most are going for a listing price, most are going for what does that look like in terms of how we're going to market it, blah, 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 blah. And I say, before we even get into this, as a seller, I'm going to ask you, what are you most passionate about? That question right there changes everything, because they're expecting a pitch. And when I turn the whole thing around and I say, as a seller, what are you most passionate about? And let them talk. They'll fill up 5 to 10 minutes with really, really game-changing stuff for you to know. If I can go to a seller, I can say, it's obvious that you want to sell your property, but let me ask a question. Where do you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of real estate ownership that I could help navigate a plan for you? That question right there takes the eye off the deal right now. And it says, we're going to go, and this is just going to be part, ready, of our relationship. And I got to tell you right now, when you think about this, I'm getting goosebumps just talking to you, Tom, because these people, you can't go in thinking you know the answer, because everybody has a different goal and everybody has a different need. And if you make it a homogeneous, sterile process, you rob the seller of the joy and the emotional fulfillment. And I'm going to tell you right now, Gallup, Edelman Trust Barometer, Deloitte Touche, big research, right? The less that you talk and the more emotion that you engage in high price transactions, real estate's a high price, lending's a high debt, right? The more you engage in emotional connection, the stats are that you can improve your margins by 26 to 48%, and you can improve your sales conversion by between 72 and 81%. Why would I not learn to ask really great questions? Because that's the deal. If I'm talking, you're not going to trust me. That creates tension. Everybody does that. How I'm different is I'm going to ask you a very, very clear, simple, really important question. And I might ask you 3 of them. And those 3 questions are going to get you and I together, and we're going to do business forever. And that's the deal. That's it. Trust is your superpower. You just got to understand. I'm not going to trust you if you try to sell me.
Todd, I got goosebumps when you asked the question about, the 5-10 years. And I'll tell you why. Because automatically what you've said to me is, I'm not going to manipulate and coerce you in a corner tonight to get something off you tonight. I'm interested in a long game with you. That made me feel safe straight away, right? Yeah. And I can see the minute you make someone feel safe, I think people start telling you the truth. I think the truth is that when an agent's going to a house, they're already getting their shield out. They're sort of saying, I know what you're all about, right? And then what you've basically done is saying, hey, I'm not going to sort of, start using some tricky questions for a yes now. I'm thinking about long term together, right?
Yeah.
Love it.
No. And here's the deal. As soon as you start going long term, the decisions in the short term have bigger meaning. And sure, everybody wants to sell their home and they want to get maximum price for it. And they want to get, the net sheet, they want it to be as big as possible. But like I said this at AREC, I said, there's a problem with you going for a maximum listing price if the property doesn't sell. And when you try to overpromise a commitment in the marketplace, one thing I see about agents that are really, really good is they have the internal fortitude and boldness to correctly price a property. And when you don't understand that and you go along with what either the seller wants or what you think you're going to need to do to outbid the other 3 or 4 agents, you're making a promise that odds on chance you may not in a market of normalcy be able to honor. And what that does is it crucifies trust. You make a promise that you can't honor, trust is over. And when trust is over, so are the referrals. So what I like is I like committing to a relationship first. And I can say to a seller, listen, I'm going to be in the business for the next 30 years. I want to help you every time you buy and sell real estate. Okay. But in order to do that, I'd love to figure out right now what's important about this property selling to you, what's important in the next 5 to 10 years that you feel I need to know as your agent, and what do we need to do to help you achieve wealth through real estate ownership over the next 20 to 30 years. Boom. Done.
Gold. Todd, when there's trust in a relationship, you know what I notice? The terms become negotiable. You don't become fixated. I had someone ask me today, they're looking for an accountant. I've had the same accountant. I actually went to school and uni with my accountant, right? So he's a mate for 30 years. And he asked me the question, And he said, so the guy that's asked me for a referral, Todd, he said, can I ask you, like, what's he charge you for the year? I said, I'll have to come back to you. I said, I've got to go look into it. And he goes, oh, right. And then I was thinking about it. You know, when you trust someone, you're not fee checking as much, are you? Because whatever you do, you just go with the flow, right? It's not like you've got to put them through an audition every time, right? You just feel like this person is not going to rip me off.
There, you brought it up a little bit, and I think the one thing that I'd like to say to everybody as you guys do this rant tonight is the idea that safety, security, serenity are three of the major emotions that sellers are looking for. And at the end of the day, you've got to understand that if I don't connect, I don't convert. I can't sell my way to a converted relationship. I can only interview my way to that. That's why the high trust interview is so important. Help me understand what you're trying to achieve in real estate ownership for the next 5 to 10 years. Tell me what's important to you about selling this property in the time frame you'd like to sell it. Why is that important? What are you looking for? If you could create the perfect real estate agent experience as a seller, what would be important to you that I deliver for you so that at the end of this transaction, you're thrilled with what we did together and we can do a lot more together? Those are the questions that attract. The more you talk, the more polarity comes in, the more tension comes in, and the more they're going to negotiate and the more you're going to get hammered on fees. I overpay a lot in trust relationships. I don't negotiate. You know, if I trust you and you got my back, I want you to win financially. I'm not going to try and penny pinch you all day long. If I trust you and you trust me, the price is the last thing that matters. It's everything else in the relationship. And that doesn't mean that you can have this gargantuan chasm between one price and another. But I got to tell you right now, the stats are that people will pay between 3 and 11% more for a product or service when trust is high compared to when trust is low or absent. And the only thing that happens in a relationship with somebody that you're trying to have that you don't yet have is if they don't trust you, the only option is that they have options. And they're going to tell you that. Objections. I'm going to talk to some other agents. Objections. I got to think about it. Objections. I'm not sure. Can you call me back next week? Objections. Objections go away when you look at me, I look at you, our eyes connect, our heart connects. And that's why it's so important to put the economics aside. There's a lot of ways to sell your property, Mr. Seller. Before we even get into that, I need to ask you one quick question. What's important about selling this home to you? What is most important about selling this home to you? And how can I help? How can I help? How can I help? And the beautiful thing about asking great questions, Tom, is they answer that question I just gave you. And then all you do is say, what else? What else? Yeah. What else? And pretty soon, 45 minutes have gone by, and I got a trusted seller who trusts me, and I'm going to do this deal, and we're going to win together. It's beautiful.
I think as you've been speaking for the last 20 minutes, I think a lot of people are potentially beginning to do a bit of an audit on their own approach that they're having, pitching for a listing presentation, and they're probably asking themselves, am I going in to build trust, connect, or am I going in to win the listing? And the second thing I think they're probably doing is asking themselves, what's that ratio of speaking versus listening? As you've been talking, I just thought of a brilliant, and I loved spoon feeding the real estate agents in a way that I can give them a script. What about this for a script or dialogue? You're at a listing presentation, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor. There are 53 salespeople that work in this marketplace, and many of them are very, very good agents. I'm just curious, if you picked the perfect agent and the marketing went brilliantly for you, and the result was exactly what you were hoping for, could I ask you, what would that look like in your eyes?
And now you zip it, and they're going to talk for 20 minutes, and they're going to think you're their best friend at the end.
Yeah,
I love it. Hey, listen. So I think everybody. I'm watching these feeds come up, and you know, I love what's happening. I want to tell everybody this is the real deal. I had $100 billion bank. I was sitting down with them and we were talking about doing a deal together. And we were in a big conference room, the head of the training for the bank, the head of HR, and then about 3 or 4 other regional managers. And I was in there with 2 of my business development guys. And the guy looked across the table and he looked at me and he said, "Tell me about the Duncan Group." So he was asking me, and the propensity was, let me tell you, right? But here's what I said. I said, the Duncan Group is a lot of things to a lot of banks, real estate firms, and mortgage companies. To make sure we're right for you, help me understand what's important about this training initiative to you. 45 minutes later, we had those guys so engaged. We asked them for the business. They said they had to talk to 2 more companies. We went out the elevator, came down the lift to the bottom, paid the guard $20 to take 6 thank you cards back upstairs. We got a call 2 weeks later that we were selected. And my business partner said, "So why did you choose us?" I love that question, right? Why did you feel comfortable choosing us? And the guy said, "You were the only company that seemed to know what we were looking for."
Yeah.
And Tom, it was $1 million plus contract. And all I did was, we're a lot of things to a lot of people. To make sure we're the right thing for you, help me understand what's important about this training initiative.
That's absolute gold, gold, because I can tell you, Todd, for 20 years of my life, I worked for Rupert Murdoch, News Corporation, and we used to buy, we were always buying various products or services. And I reckon the thing that I would used to say to my own PA, she'd say to me, why'd you pick him? It was this: they got us. They understood. Basically, I mean, they understood us. They get us. They understand. They get what we're about, right? They get what they're right. And I don't know. I'm trying to think back. Were they asking questions? I don't know. When you're the buyer, you just get this feeling that this person gets me, understands what's stressing me out so much on why I'm actually sitting with you in the first place.
And that, the most amazing thing about what you just said, and I want everybody to hear this, if you ask the right questions, and Tom, you brought it up earlier, and you actively listen. I want to tell everybody, do you know what active listening means? You're listening for action that you can take. And so literally a seller, anybody you're doing business will tell you what you need to do to win the business. That's active listening. And we all get excited about a deal, right? We all get excited about getting them to sign. We all get excited about that. But that's not what excites them. What excites them is you asking them things. It's called empathy. It's called connection. It's called, relationship. I'm not gonna just transact all day long. That's exhausting. That's why my mentor said, relationships will make you a fortune. All you have to do is, you brought it up, Tom. We're not manipulating anything, man. Humanity. Keep humanity in the transaction. Keep emotion high. The higher the emotion and the higher the humanity, the less the economics matter. If you don't do that, then the economics rule. And I don't ever want to do business on trying to be the lowest guy with the fastest promise. And I don't want to do that. I want to be worth waiting for. I want sellers to wait in line for me because my reputation is so strong that they're going to wait until I can call them back in a day or 2. I don't have to right away. It's just like, you want to always be available, or do you want to be worth waiting for? It's just like, it's so powerful, Tom.
Scott, conversational productivity is a term you mentioned before we went on air. You never got to explain it to me, and so I'm curious. Tell us what it is.
It's making sure that in any time frame you have with a potential prospect, a potential sale, that you spend 80% of the time listening, 20% of the time asking. Most people do it the wrong way. They spend 80% of the time talking and only 20% of the time listening. And you talk yourself right out of the sale. So conversational productivity, if you just want to put it in a nutshell, make sure that for every 10 minutes, 8 minutes is listening and 2 minutes is asking. and you split that 2 minutes up, you could ask 4 15-second questions and you could listen for 8 minutes. If it's a half an hour, do the math. If it's an hour, do the math. And it wins the business. When you can talk yourself right out of a sale if you get excited. And we all get excited, right? But just pump the brakes. Just settle down, man. High trust is this. It's connecting. It's not selling and talking and promising. In fact, the less you talk, the better the odds you'll win the business, as long as you ask the right questions and then you listen.
Now, I want to ask you, if people want to get more of Todd, like I can see your background, you've got a podcast. It's obviously you've got how often does your podcast come out?
We do probably 2 a week minimum, and we're going into a 20-year celebration for high trust selling. It's the 20th year since the book was written, so we're going to be on about 50 podcasts in the next 4 months, and just spreading the word, man, spreading the word and having people understand the power of trust. So anybody can get a hold of me at Todd Duncan Official. That's my best social media handle. If you'd like a copy of the Talk Less, Sell More white paper, all you need to do is, just email me at todd.duncan@toddduncan.com. That's all you have to do. And we'll send you the 20-page white paper, Talk Less, Sell More. It's the absolute playbook for agents and lenders to win the business. Yeah. So,
okay. So can we have a repeat of that email address?
Yeah. Todd, Todd.Duncan @toddduncan.com. And just type in the subject line, Talk Less.
Okay, absolutely brilliant. This is absolute gold. The comments that have been coming through, I've been putting a few of them up there on the StreamYard banner box. Again, I want to thank you so much. It is 1:30 a.m. in California. I know it's we follow what's going on. We know that the Omicron virus is raging in the US at the moment. Raging, stay healthy, stay safe. I can't thank you enough. You said to another speaker I was talking to before, I said, listen, I'm going to have to go because we've got a session with Todd Duncan. He was actually a speaker at AREC as well. His name, Scott Dudden. And he said, what's he like? I said, look, with speakers, you know what it's like. Sometimes you get a guy that's on stage, he's good, but deep down, he's not a good person. I said, this guy's the real deal. His audio matches his video. And it's been an absolute pleasure to connect with you. I'd love to be able to have you again, Todd. Our real estate community in Australia love you. John McGrath told me to say hi, by the way.
Yeah, tell him hi back.
Yeah, I had a finish with John about 2 hours before. So thank you so much. Love to your partner. And the comments coming through, as you can see, outstanding, and I've actually just put your email up there on the screen for those that actually missed it. So get a hold of it. He's going to be everywhere. Congratulations on 20 years as well. They say form is temporary, class is permanent. You didn't wing it for 20 years in a row, right?
It tells you the possibility, man. Trust just keeps getting bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger. And Tom, best wishes to you and everybody that joined this evening, Monday night. Thank you for chiming in. I love watching the comments, and I love waking up every day and just answering the question, how can I help people win? And if I can help you win, you got my email address. Let's do it together. Tom, Godspeed to you, man. Good on you, buddy, and stay healthy.
Thank you so much. See you later, everyone.
Okay.